Hey, I'm Alan Furstenberg,
I'm Andrew Connell.
and welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Two voice devs.
Andrew, welcome to the show. Good to have you on as a guest host this week.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to doing this today.
Mark and I have been looking for a long time to find somebody who can kind of cover the Microsoft perspective on some of what they're doing with AI and voice and so forth and so on. And you finally was able to connect with you. So I'm looking forward to having some great conversations with you about where Microsoft is and what they're doing. But why don't we start off by telling folks a little bit about you?
Sure, sounds good. If I find a person that can do that for you, I'll let you know. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So thanks for having me on again. I'm Andrew Connell. I guess my intro is I'm primarily a Microsoft 365 developer, and I guess we'll get into what that means. But it's Microsoft 365 is Microsoft's productivity, modern work, collaboration platform. So like Google's got Workspace and everybody's got different things. But that's Microsoft's story. So that encompasses things like SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, and a whole bunch of other stuff that's kind of just interspliced into it, like all the cloud-based services are these days. So I primarily am on the developer side of it. I'm not on the end user or like the deployment or that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this? What's your background, I guess?
So I've always been a developer, and I guess I was primarily like a client-side developer when I got out of college, and was just getting into the .NET space. It's like just classic like web dev type stuff. It was right at the beginning, like when web was really taking off. A couple of years, like fast forward from that, the part that gets a little bit more interesting, not starting way back. I guess I started way back, but I'll fast forward a little bit. After a couple of years, I was trying to find a job doing something other than what I was doing. And I'd spent a lot of time doing .NET stuff. A company hired me to come in and to help them migrate their existing notes-based development stuff over to doing more .NET-based development.
Now, notes-based, so that was Lotus Notes for anybody that might or might not remember that?
Yeah, this goes way, this is like 20-some years ago, right? So the company had decided, it was an enterprise like Fortune 300, and they had decided that they were going to re-platform from doing notes and all of their like collaboration stuff, and they were switching over to the Microsoft stack. So they were going to do SharePoint, they were going to switch over to .NET, and I was hired as the .NET developer to kind of come in and be ingrained into the rest of the team to kind of help people move along to the .NET space. I'm not so sure anybody did that. I was kind of like the only one that was doing all the Microsoft work, and everybody else just kind of begrudgingly stuck their heels in. But it was a long time ago, so it's fine. But at the same time, they were in the middle of evaluating a new corporate intranet content management system, and for both website and collaboration stuff for the company. And kind of ironically, when I got there, they had like 5 things on their list, and of them, ordered 1 through 5, where 1 was their top priority. Number 4 was SharePoint, so we were not going to use SharePoint at the time. And then they said, corporate came down and said, hey, guess what? We just signed an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. You're going to use SharePoint. I'm like, oh, okay. So I never made the decision that I wanted to do SharePoint development, just to make that clear, because most people are like, why would you ever do that? I was pushed into it. And from there, I just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I saw one of those things that it was really hard to use. And it was really hard to understand because it wasn't a development platform, which meant that there was an opportunity to learn something new and to kind of reverse engineer stuff, understand how it worked, and then how could you bend it to do what we wanted it to do. And from there, I just kind of earned a name for myself because I started to I was involved in, so we're going way back, I was involved in like the whole Usenet news groups.
I loved Usenet back in the day. So yes, of course.
Posting questions, answering questions, meeting people in the community when it was all just real basic like ICQ and Usenet based stuff. And from there, I guess about 2 years in from the work I was doing there, Microsoft noticed me helping people and writing a lot of stuff. I started a blog back in 2003, and so I was just writing it, using it like my diary or my journal of the work that I was doing and figuring things out. In 2005, they awarded me with what they call the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional, so an MVP award. And that was, well, as of 2 weeks ago, that was 21 years ago. And I've gotten renewed every year. And as I've moved along from doing just SharePoint got sucked into the cloud. I started doing more Teams-based stuff. That was always cloud-based. And the more in the last like 5 to really, I guess, really going back about 10-ish years when Microsoft's cloud story started for modern work-based stuff, collaboration, stuff like that. It was called Office 365. Then it moved, and then they rebranded it to Microsoft 365. So I call myself now, I'm a Microsoft 365 developer, but what that means is that if it's on the modern work side of Microsoft, so not the like Microsoft Azure side, but more on the collaboration business side, we see it as a different way, but whatever.
Well, and so several things. First of all, congratulations on 21 years of being an MVP. I mean, that's truly amazing.
Yeah, it's. I tell people I'm on like the 24th or 25th step of the 12 steps program. So I've been through twice now. I'm just kidding though.
But and I think it's an important distinction that a lot of people don't understand. And I see the same thing on the Google side is that you talk about the cloud stuff, but there's really two different clouds here. We've got like an enterprise cloud that is focused on products that are internally facing for the most part. But there's also a developer component to that. There's the ability for internal developers to be building stuff that is internally facing and integrates with those products. And then there's the cloud stuff, which is developers building their own stuff for the outside world. And I don't think people really get that kind of distinction.
It's a lot. We have the same problem on our side as well. I mean, on the Microsoft side, where you see people like all of the work that I do on the Microsoft 365 side. I mean, the one thing that's common across all of it. There's not a single one of my users that is never not authenticated. Like everybody's authenticated because it's all inside the firewall, or it's like an extranet based scenario where someone is coming from their own organization using their own identity coming in, but they're always authenticated. So it's not like, I mean, it kind of sucks because it's like, back in the day it was, my parents like, oh, can you show me what you built? I'm like, not really. I mean, it's not that it's secret. It's just that number one, it's boring. Number two, you don't have an account. I can't show it to you. I can barely even see the stuff that's in production I do because I'm doing it for another company. So, I mean, it is what it is, but.
So largely you're focusing on that internally facing stuff right now and what Microsoft is doing for those internally facing products. I guess the question then starts coming around, what are they doing and what are they bringing and what are they letting developers do connected with their AI products? What is kind of their AI focus in that field? Or what is the AI tie-in with developers? Or and I know there are a bunch of ways that it is, but what is that?
So this is, and I guess you'll have to push back on me or at least prod me a bit because I live so much in the Microsoft 365 world that when I come out and I talk to some of my friends, some of the communities I'm in that are not in the Microsoft world, I'm like, so I work. Do you guys know what Copilot is? And
it's a different set of buzzwords.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know if you know what Copilot is because it's like, well, right now for me it's like a 4-letter word because you hear it so much and Microsoft has over-branded everything Copilot. But I don't know like what when you hear on the outside like going, is this just really big in my world? Is it like nobody else sees it? So.
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I see, and that's as somebody who's in the AI space, but doesn't know the Microsoft AI space very well, is I remember, I guess it was almost 2 years ago now at this point, that Copilot was kind of what we would now sort of call an agent. And the Copilots were agents that did various things. But that's about all I really understood about it, and it came from GitHub Copilot, which was very specific, a very specific coding assistance tool. And I feel like Microsoft adopted the term broadly speaking. Is that
that's
am I on the right track?
Yeah, you're on the right track. That helps too. That gives me a lot more context. So, like, Microsoft did. I guess they adopted the Copilot brand from, maybe it was from GitHub. I don't know where it really originally came from, but somebody came up with it first. Microsoft owns GitHub, but they treat it very much like LinkedIn, where like those two, it's funny, what Microsoft buys, as long as they leave them alone, it's like, you guys just keep doing what you're doing and just have your quarterly numbers report up into our stuff, we're good. That's like why, that's one of the reasons why Copilot or GitHub still does really, really well on its own. Anyway, so yes, they came up with this, their AI platform. So it's split in kind of two. So you've got the infrastructure side of their AI story is over on the Azure side. And so that's going to be more like, I'm a developer. I want to go leverage your services to build my own products. For instance, it was teased out in the news. This may be different being soon, but at least right now, all of OpenAI, all of their infrastructure that runs ChatGPT, all their model training, all the training models and everything, all of that is all done on Microsoft Azure, on the Azure stack. What Microsoft has then done is over on the Microsoft 365 side, they have built something called Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, just for the sake of our conversation, let's just say that whenever I use the word Copilot, unless I qualify it as something else, I mean Microsoft 365 Copilot, because it's not too far from the truth, because this was the truth about a year and a half ago. Microsoft had over 120 Copilots across the company.
Okay.
Yeah, the PowerPoint slide was atrocious. But so we have like GitHub Copilot, and yes, you can think about it. It is agentic. It's just a chatbot that allows you to, that's got AI infused in it that can then take a bunch of actions on our behalf. So Microsoft 365 Copilot, the best way I can describe it is, if I assume that most people, or if not most people, at least everybody's heard of it, of ChatGPT. So we all know what ChatGPT does.
I think it's a safe assumption that most people watching this show might have heard of it. Pretty good chance of that. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say that's what Microsoft 365 Copilot is, or M365, or just Copilot for short. What they've done is they've created their own instance of ChatGPT. But, I know somebody's going to be like, wait a minute, he's wrong, but just hear me out. What Microsoft has done that is different from what ChatGPT did is that or what OpenAI did with ChatGPT, is that ChatGPT, everything is like public domain. So we've heard the stories from early on when it came out that there were those Samsung engineers that they were working on a new product. They needed to work on some documentation. So they used ChatGPT to help write the documentation. Next thing you know, other people, or products that had not been announced or released or even announced yet. And then some people started doing some stuff with ChatGPT, and voila, brand new products that Samsung had never announced were showing up in some people's results, because you were training the model like with all of the stuff that already been trained, or on top of what's already been trained. So what Microsoft 365 did is they said, okay, we're going to do a couple things. And this is one of the big offerings that Azure has, but that's something, we can get into that if you're interested, but that's staying on the 365 side, is that one of the big things they did with Copilot was they said, this is going to live in, for lack of a better term, well, because Microsoft uses it all the time, it's called a secure enclave. So it's basically saying that everything you do inside of this Copilot experience, it is not going in the public domain. And better yet, it's not going anywhere outside of your tenant, your company.
Right.
So as a company, when I'm using the same Microsoft 365 Copilot that everybody else on Microsoft is using, but all of the data and my experience is siloed away from all other corporations, all other companies that are on the platform.
And most importantly, at least from a corporate point of view, siloed away from Microsoft as well.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So they don't have access to any of the stuff that I have. In fact, I have to, if I ever have like an issue with them, I can provide them what's called a request ID, which is kind of like a transaction ID. I give them that request ID, and from there they can see telemetry, but they can't see the raw content unless I provide it to them, because it's all encrypted with my own keys on my own tenant. So it's all secure. Yep. So that's one. And what they've also done is that is kind of above and beyond what, and Copilot or ChatGPT is adding features like this now. Other agentic, just made up a new AI term. That's the very nice agents. What they've done is they've done one more thing on top of this that is essentially making it more private. And so not only do we have the foundational knowledge from the underlying model that ChatGPT uses, but they've created another really big vector database for each customer, each tenant. They call this the Semantic Index. And so what it does is that they are constantly crawling and indexing all of the content in our organizations. So that includes documents in OneDrive or SharePoint. That includes chat messages and Teams. That includes transcripts from meetings, emails, calendar items. All that stuff is all being indexed, secured. It's got ACLs, access control lists attached with each item that's in there. So if I'm not allowed to see my neighbor's email, then I don't have permission to see it, so it wouldn't come back. Yeah. So all of that stuff is being indexed, all with with AI-based indexing, right? So it's all like creating embeddings, and the semantic index. It's all storing all of that in this giant vector database. So when I ask Copilot a question, it first uses the prompt that I've sent it to go over to LLM that they've configured and say, what is Andrew's intent? Oh, he's asking for all of the emails from the people that he's having meetings with today. So the LLM will respond back to the Copilot's orchestrator and say, hey, I need additional context. I need Andrew's meetings and I need Andrew's emails. And so what Copilot does is it runs over to the, It runs over to the semantic index. It collects all that data, and essentially on the fly, it's implementing its own RAG pattern to pull that data out, and then it resubmits the prompt over to the LLM with all this additional context so that the LLM could then rationalize, summarize all that data, and respond back.
Is it fair to say that the Copilot platform system is a retrieval augmented generation system, fundamentally?
You could say that. There's other stuff that you could add to it as well.
Okay.
But for the most part, yes.
And when I use the term retrieval augmented generation, I don't specifically mean there's a vector database attached to it. Mm-hmm. I mean that in the bigger sense, that we've got a bunch of other resources, and Copilot knows how to access those resources to answer the question that's been presented to it.
Yes. That fundamentally is exactly what it's doing.
Okay.
The only other thing that it adds to it that is another corporate enterprise-based thing that they like to add, and this is coming from a feature that we have over on the Azure side with their AI capabilities, is it's implementing what's called responsible internet. And so what they do is every prompt coming in and every response going out, you can leverage a service AI moderation, responsible internet from Azure on the exchange back and forth. And what that does is it looks at 4 different categories of content that have different severity levels applied to them. That if you are building your own solution, so not Copilot, but you were using Azure AI for this, it's called AI Foundry, which is like their version of, I think Google's is Vertex. Is that right?
Vertex is, I think the best way to describe Vertex is we have this huge thing called Google Cloud Platform.
Yeah.
And everything in Google Cloud Platform that's related to AI is part of Vertex.
Okay, same. So yeah, so AI Foundry is Microsoft's version of that. Like we have AWS Bedrock, same concept. So what the AI feature is that I could have like my agent or that my AI application leverage this responsible AI configuration with these 4 properties or 4 categories on these different settings. I could have it configured one way, but for a different project, have it configured a different way. Well, what 365 Copilot did, is they have it set up in a way that the 4 categories are, I think, hate speech, self-harm, sexual, and violence. And if it sees anything that you've asked it to do, it's like, nope, sorry, I won't touch that. If it's going to respond as part of its generative response, it'll go through those same filters and going, nope, sorry, we're not going to say that.
How configurable is that to an organization?
If you're using...
On the Copilot side.
Okay, on the Copilot side, not at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the thing this is where, and now we start getting into the developer talk right here. So that's the out-of-the-box experience for Copilot. What that does is that's all running on, there's not a name for it, so I had to come up with my own name, but it's on the Copilot stack. And so it's you got the user experience at the top. They have a picture for it, but they don't give it a name. They just call it Copilot. But then again, that's like 121st term for Copilot. So I'm like, this isn't going to work, guys. So they have their own orchestrator that they built. They have their own foundational model or models that they're using. So GPT-4, GPT-4o, GPT-4 Mini, they sometimes talk about it. Sometimes it gets updated. They're not very public about it. They don't tell you what the configuration is, like the temperature, the memory. They don't tell you any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then the orchestrator is all built to where it knows how to go fetch knowledge, how to go fetch real-time data on the fly. It has all that stuff built in.
So Copilot is essentially what we're calling the Copilot stack. It's the safety component and the orchestrator and a model of unknown of unknown details. It's all of that is Copilot.
Yes. That's the stack. Yeah, that's the Copilot stack. And to be clear, the Microsoft 365 Copilot stack. That's not GitHub or any of that other stuff. So what they've done then on the developer side is they give us a way to then create our own. And you can think of Copilot then in that sense. Think about it as an agent. Okay? Think about it as an agent. The same way you talk about with ChatGPT. Is ChatGPT an agent? We could debate that. I mean, you could kind of. I think on the yes side, then yes, Copilot is a one-to-one comparison. What Microsoft 365 has done is they've then given us a couple different ways that we can create our own agents so that we can have our own custom instructions, which would get added to the system prompt that we don't have control over from M365 Copilot, but ours would get added in after the system prompt. It would also allow us to then add in or filter what knowledge we want to take advantage of. So are we just going to get data from the Semantic Index? Do we not want some data from the Semantic Index? Do we want data from web search, which you could argue how accurate is it because it uses Bing? You could say like then, I don't like Bing. I'm a Google person.
You said it, not me.
I go back in the days. I still have a Mac, but I go back in the days when I'd show up at a Microsoft conference and I go to present. Like, you can't use that. I'm like, then I'm not presenting. It's a Mac. I have a real computer. Sorry, guys. I can go through and I can say what kind of knowledge I want. I could add additional knowledge to the Semantic Index.
I was going to say how much. What kind of an interface do you have to just say, here's an API?
Yeah. So you have a lot of control with this, and there's like 4 different ways of we can do customizations from like low code, no code maker stuff to the more developer-y kind of stuff. So the more developer-y kind of stuff is when you get into using what's called a declarative agent. It's just JSON and YAML. And so what you do is you use JSON to say, hey, here's the instruction, here's the name, standard metadata about it, name, description, image, blah, blah. Then it's, here's the instructions that we're going to add after your system prompt. Blanked on that for a minute. Then here's a section of, here's all the knowledge that we can take advantage of. And so that's stuff that is either a capability that Microsoft has provided, or it is knowledge that we are either leveraging in what's in their Semantic Index, that is a 365 thing that is all based on all of our organizational data. But as a developer, I can add my own knowledge to that Semantic Index for indexing. So like, for example, I teach courses. Or I create video-based courses and sell them. So I could take all of my transcripts to all my courses. I could ingest them into the Semantic Index in my tenant, and then everybody that works for my company, which is just me, they would all be able to then, I talk about me in the third person in plural too. That's even crazier. When I then ask Copilot a question, Copilot could respond back with, here's what I know about the SharePoint framework, or building apps on Teams, or building custom agents for Copilot, because it's based on stuff that I said. And then the other type of extension that we can create on these declarative agents is a section called actions. Just as a footnote, Microsoft 365 drives me crazy. It drives everybody crazy in the sense that because they are terrible at naming. They're terrible at naming, and not only are they terrible at it, they do it over and over. They rename stuff over and over, and the names they come up with are no better than the last one.
You know, you and I met briefly beforehand, and I think both of us were relieved to hear that the other company does the same thing. Google is notoriously bad for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I will often joke about how, well, were you trying to use Google Wallet, Google Wallet, Google Wallet, Google Wallet, or Google Wallet? Because they're all different products.
Well, okay, I can raise you on that one. We have OneDrive, which is y'all's Google Drive, But I can have multiple OneDrives. I can have a personal OneDrive. That's just one of those. But then I can have a corporate OneDrive, like a business OneDrive, or 3 or 4 business OneDrives as well. Like, what? So
I don't want to go too far into trashing either of these companies, which I feel like we could do quite easily.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they have these things called actions.
Yeah. So the actions, the industry calls Microsoft has called them actions. They call them plugins. The industry calls them tools. And so to me, that's really all it is a tool. So essentially, it's just.
And when you say the industry calls them tools, do we mean on the AI side of the world, this is what the AI world is calling a tool right now?
Yes, I would.
Okay,
that's what I would call it. I mean, and I don't mean just tool like MCP, Model Context Protocol tool. I just mean tools in general. How do I reach out and go get data on the fly on this prompt, like real time? When the agent says, "Hey, you're asking me for stock quotes. That's clearly not been indexed in our corporate data. We need to go fetch that from a stock service. Do I know that skill? Have you taught me that skill?" And so the way we do that is you have, I guess you're not forced to do it this way, but you basically say, here's a REST endpoint that you're going to go talk to. And that REST endpoint could be an existing API, or it could be one that you've created for your specific scenario. But you can leverage existing APIs that are out there as well. And the only requirement for that is you just have to have a Open API descriptor doc, an OAD file. A lot of people also refer to those as Swagger. I know that's not the same thing, but I know it's like Swagger, OpenAI.
Yeah.
And what that does is that just simply says, hey, agent, you know how to go get stock quotes. And when you need to do it, you're going to call this function. Oh, by the way, this function called get stock quote or get stock quotes, plural, you will find, Mr. Orchestrator, you'll learn how to talk to it by looking at this YAML file, which is an OAD file. And the orchestrator's like, cool, got it. I have all the instructions I need for doing that. And there may be more stuff in your instructions you gave me on what stock quotes you're looking for. If you're, whenever there's a stock quote, always default to NASDAQ or always default to Dow Jones or whatever. So that's the gist. I can then take that agent, package it up, and I could use it just myself. They're all deployed as Microsoft Teams apps.
I was about to say, so when you say package it up and deploy, what if I'm an employee in a company, where am I going to use this thing?
Okay. So as a developer, when I build this, I'm going to, this declarative agent is just JSON and YAML. So when I build it, I've got a series of JSON files. I've got generally one, but it could be multiple YAML files with OADs. Then I'll have 2 PNG files, 2 images for the agent's picture. There's like a wireframe you have to do, and then there's also a colored version. And then a single manifest file that is a Microsoft Teams app manifest. Now, the reason they do that is because Teams app manifests, which we really just call them app manifest now, Teams, the way that we built and deployed Teams apps in the past, that is kind of now the de facto way of building apps for Microsoft 365. And one of the capabilities we can have inside of it now is an agent. And so when we build everything, then it's the manifest for the app, which is a JSON file, the manifest for the declarative agent, JSON file, the plugin manifest, which is the thing that tells us where all the tools are, JSON file, and the YAML files for the endpoints that we're going to go talk to from the plugin. We take, and those 2 images, take all those, package them up, which basically means put them in a zip file. And then you go to your Microsoft Teams Admin Center, which is an admin interface you're going to have on the 365 side. Mm-hmm. And you upload this zip and say, ta-da, you've now got this app. It could have other stuff in it as well, like just normal chat bots, tabs in Teams. If anybody's used Teams, you can create custom tabs. You can create a whole bunch of different things. But
I am fuzzy on, I use Teams essentially to have video chats with people. That's about the extent of how much I use Teams.
That's how most use it.
What was that?
That's how most use it.
I feel like, well, that was always the sense that I get. But, I always kind of knew there was more to Teams, especially because it tells me that every time I close Teams up, it says there's more to Teams.
Yeah.
So what it sounds like, though, is you're creating something that I, as a member of your organization, download this from somewhere or have it available to me on a console somewhere or on an app screen or something like that?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for poking me on that one. I missed that part. So once I've deployed it to my Teams environment, then there are multiple ways that I can actually use 365 Copilot. If I'm in my company, Teams is like it's like the hub of everything you do. So in a Microsoft world, you're always going to have Outlook open and you're always going to have Teams open. So Teams is where Teams is the equivalent of Slack. Teams is the equivalent of also Zoom. Teams is the equivalent of also ChatGPT now. So you have all those different apps inside this one Teams experience, except for your email and your calendar. And technically your calendar is also in Teams, but that's okay. Outlook will never die. So when I want to go use this agent, I go into the Copilot app inside of Microsoft Teams. And what I'm doing is that's the equivalent of saying, go to ChatGPT. When I have a conversation with Copilot, I can talk directly to Copilot and I can mention an agent to get an agent involved. Or you can do an immersive experience where you basically say, I want to go use that agent that's in my left-hand margin. I pick it, and now I have a one-on-one chat with whatever agent.
That specific agent. Okay, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, and then there's other places that you can do it too. Like, for example, if you go to what used to be office.com, or if you're like in Word, or you're in Excel, or you're in PowerPoint, there's a Copilot experience in there. We call that app chat, but you're still talking to Copilot. So I can still have conversation. And so I'm still can interface with my agents that way as well.
So, well, that just raised like 3 other questions I had. So let me start on the app one.
Mm-hmm.
So this means that I, as a developer, can build a Copilot that is tailored to work with Word? ?
There is not much today on the extensibility side. You can create an agent that will work inside the Copilot experience in Word, but there's not much wordy specific stuff that you can do. There are other stories to extend Word in Excel and PowerPoint, but in the context of Copilot, today I'm not aware of anything specific that where Copilot can talk directly to like Word, the client.
I mean, kind of what I'm picturing is, I'm in a Word document, I've got my Copilot sitting next to me, and I've just typed up a paragraph and I stare at it and I highlight it and I go to Copilot and I say, reword this paragraph because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Copilot may have some out-of-the-box stuff that can do with that. Today on the developer story, I've not seen anything that's going to allow us that from a developer. I can't go ahead and say like, hey, I'm in Word. I want to build, this is a Copilot agent that I built specifically for Word. Today, that story doesn't exist.
Okay. So that was one question.
Yep.
The next one is, now, my understanding of Teams, and it's as I said, a very, very flimsy understanding of Teams, I'll admit, is that there's kind of 2 ways to access Teams. One is through a web browser, and one is through the Teams app that you've installed. In each of, I'm assuming that, well, I guess the question is, in each of those cases, where does the Copilot run when you're using it? Okay,
so first of all, those 2 experiences, same. The desktop client that you have, it's on Mac or Windows or whatever. Think of it as just an Electron client because it's just a client of the. It's not. It was. The current one is more native for each platform that it's on for performance reasons on Windows and Mac, but it's still just under the covers. It's still just a React app.
Interesting. So very little is actually running on the machine itself.
Almost nothing is running on the machine. Almost nothing is. I mean, there is no offline experience for Teams.
Wow.
Like full stop.
That's. I never expected that from Microsoft.
Yeah.
For all I know, it's been doing that for decades, and I didn't know it. But it's a very non-Microsoft thing for me.
So here's why. And this is something I see most people don't like. Most customers that have been using Teams never even understood this. So I'm not surprising that this is surprising. Teams is basically just a proxy. There's no such thing as Teams like on the server. All of the files and everything that are stored in Teams, they're all in SharePoint. There's a SharePoint site behind every single team we create in Teams. All of the calls that you do, all of the chat, even the chat experiences, that's just text, or the the chat experience is just one-on-one, or it's group inside of a, this is where the naming is driving you crazy. If you have a Microsoft Teams team, so capital Microsoft, capital T, lowercase team, if you create a team for your group, your organization, when you do chat inside of that, when you and I would have a meeting over Teams, like when we met before our podcast, that's all what we used to call Skype. It is still, in fact, all of the IDs are still like, it even starts with a little thing that looks like Skype at the very beginning of the ID. And you're like, oh, there's a nice little trick there. So Teams is really nothing. It's everything else on the outside. Teams' calendar is just Exchange.
Okay.
So,
I guess the answer to my own question is it's running somewhere in the cloud. There's, the Copilot is not running on my machine itself.
Never. No. Copilot is running on this is a hosted service, and there is no local story for Copilot. It's 100% in the cloud. It's 100% online. There is zero offline story for anything Teams related today.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I don't think.
Okay.
There was a lot of pushback for that initially when Teams came out a couple of years before the pandemic, but there's been. Like, I don't hear that anymore from anybody anymore. They're just like, oh, it's just an online story. That's just how it is.
Wow. Okay. So all of I've learned a ton so far.
Cool.
I know we are at this point now about 2 months out from Microsoft Build.
Yeah.
Was there anything new? Copilot's a 2-year-old story or so now at this point. Mm-hmm. Was there anything new that's been announced at Build or recently?
This is where you're going to get the honest side of me. Everything else before that was also honest. I wasn't lying about anything.
And this is why we like talking to people not working for the companies that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So Build is Microsoft's developer conference, right? Or it's supposed to be Microsoft's developer conference. And then they have a separate one that is more for like IT pros. So it's called Ignite. So that one's usually in November-ish. And then Build is in May-ish. And at this Build, so directly answering your question, at this Build, my 2 cents, I was mostly disappointed in what the Microsoft 365 Copilot guys had to say. There was a little bit of stuff that was some developer improvements. Like there was some stuff that they had teased up from the previous Ignite conference the year before. But the real interesting stuff that is kind of like going, okay, that's cool on the AI side, that was all coming from the Azure group.
Okay.
So for the most, for example, what we got on the 365 side, they took the tooling that we used to use to build custom apps for Teams and custom agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot, and they renamed it to called the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit, from the Teams Toolkit to the Agents Toolkit. And it's like, seriously, guys, because I use this to build agents, but do I still build Teams apps? Like, yeah, you still build Teams apps. Do I still use it to build add-ins for Word and for Outlook and Excel? Like, yeah, you still use it to do that. But I don't have to do any AI in those things either. And they're like, no, you don't have to do it. I'm like, so you renamed this entire tooling that we had to a different thing that makes it scream AI because you put agents in there. But there's nothing. This is just purely a marketing play. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yes. And like, no. Like, yes. So everybody's like, please give me a break. So everybody will get it. They'll make sense. I'm like, watch this. And so I put something up on LinkedIn and I'm like, what should that name have been? Should it have been the name they chose? Should it have been the last name? Or should it have been the Microsoft 365 Developers Toolkit? And I had a ton of responses on this poll I put on LinkedIn, and 2% said it should have been the name they chose. And 80-some% said, nope, it should have been the Microsoft 365 Developers Toolkit. And the ironic thing about it, here's the really honest part. The number of private DMs I got from people who work at Microsoft that I know, they were like, oh my God, thank you for asking this. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So that was when they renamed the toolkit. The tooling that we had, they gave us a new, there was a new SDK that they were changing their entire, the SDK we used to build chatbots before was very long in the tooth. There's a long political story to it that you will roll your eyes at like so crazy. And I don't know if we have the time for me to go into it, explain to you. I'm happy to, but they basically said, this is the V5 of what you used to know, this thing called the bot framework, but now we're going to call it the agents SDK. It's like, okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because agents is the hot word these days. I mean,
Right. So there was that. They teased at some other stuff like going, now we have, and then the new toolkit also had like some new project templates to make our lives a little bit better as developers. But I mean, to me, it was kind of like, this is all you have to show in the last, since we last had like they did this like September, like mid Copilot kind of event. And from the developer side, they had a few announcements at that back in September of 2024. But from September 2024 to build of this year, or when you consider build of 2024 to build 2025, on the 365 development for Copilot space goes, it was a lot of just like, So it was disappointing. The Azure guys, though, were like, oh my God, you guys are on fire. So like that's where you feel like going, okay, if I thought Microsoft lost its way, I look over at Azure, I'm like, cool, you guys are going strong. You look over the 365 side on the Copilot side, and it's like, what you guys been doing? So
I feel like I have similar stories in some ways. But it does tell me I now need to work with you to find somebody over on the Azure side as well to bring on the show.
I know. I do know the Azure side. I do know the Azure side. I know it deep. The AI side, I'm a little bit more topical too, but I do understand it pretty solid.
So it occurred to me I had one more question. Kind of, you mentioned there's a low code, no code, all the way up to heavy code. Kind of, can you kind of talk about those two spectrums and where do you see people fitting in, and where do developers really want to go? Because I also think the low code, no code, they're developers. There's you don't need to play with code with text to be a coder. Yeah. So where does all of this fit in?
So what I went through earlier when I said like there's like the low code no code story, and so Microsoft has a product called Copilot Studio, which is essentially it's just a designer. It's a designer for building agents, so it's a GUI designer for building agents, web based. I mean, it's what you would expect. It's like you connect things together. You say I want to pull data from this, I want to pull data from that. I'll upload my file here, stuff like that. That's still like the low code no code. There's a lightweight version of that is included like right inside of Teams called Agent Builder, and that launches like a lightweight version of Copilot Studio, but still all like low code, no code stuff. Nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't call when in the traditional sense of saying developer, when we say like pro code, or I call it full stack dev. I wouldn't put that as that's what those are built for. That's built for more of like the makers and to enable like small teams. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the other one that we use, the tooling that we've been given for building declarative agents. And so you basically describe an agent using JSON and YAML. Okay. There is another option though, and this is when and you started to say this a little bit, and I forgot I meant to mention this earlier, but I wanted to go off on this topic too. There's another option, and that other option is called a custom engine agent. So that is when, if I don't want to, now all of these different tools I'm talking about, to the end user, they just see Andrew and Alan built an agent, they threw it inside a Copilot. They don't know how it was built. They don't care.
Right.
All right. When you build a custom engine agent, that is when you say as a developer, you know what? I want to use a different foundational model than you use in Copilot. I want to use a different configuration. I want to dial the temperature way down to make it much more predictable, because we're all financial services. I don't want you to get creative or hallucinate any of these things. Or I don't like the way that your orchestrator works and the way it gets knowledge. I need more control over this. I need to get data.
So this is taking a step outside of that Copilot stack that you were talking about. Okay.
Yeah. So I intentionally avoided one part of that stack that we glazed over, and that was just the UX. The UX at the top, that's the Teams client, that's the Office.com client, that's the app chat clients that we have inside of Word and Excel and all those. But everything below that, the Copilot stack, you could just say, I don't want that. I don't want that. Instead, I want to roll my own. I want to build my own agent that runs on the whole agent platform and Azure AI Foundry, and that uses my own model that I'm running inside of Azure AI Foundry, that I have my own knowledge. I've got my own vector database I'm using Azure resources for. It has they use it for search. It's called Azure AI Search, which is it's a vector. You can use it as a vector database or a keyword database. They've got Cosmos DB, which is a big, huge, massively scalable database. Or you can be like, screw it. I got a customer that is all on Microsoft 365 for collaboration, but as an enterprise, we're AWS. We use Bedrock. I want to use all of that stuff to build my agent and make it available inside of Copilot. To do that, we build a thing called a custom engine agent. And all that is basically saying, you're going to build a chatbot, and that chatbot's going to run wherever you want it to run, on any stack that you want to run it on. And the best part about it is the people who use that don't need a license to use it, because they're not going to pay for the Microsoft Copilot license that is basically an all-you-can-eat license for a customer. Each person has to have one to use Copilot. There's some different licensing things, but let's just keep it simple for now. It's Microsoft. Licensing is like a bread and butter, whatever. It's important. So that table stakes, there we go. We'll just use that. So with this one, though, when you build a custom engine agent, they're like, we don't care what you use to build it, because you as the developer, you're going to pay for it. Wherever you host it, whether it's on Azure infrastructure, AWS, Google, if you want to use models from Hugging Face, if you want to use Llama Index, LangChain, it doesn't matter. You bring your own orchestrator. You bring your own model. You do your own RAG. You do your own instructions. You do everything on your own as a custom engine agent, and that is all like pure full code option there.
So you're basically, this is basically just a way to say, we've got the UX and you'll access it through Teams the same way you access the other stuff through Teams. Mm-hmm. But beyond the UX, it's going to hand stuff off to you using, I'm going to guess, a REST interface. Mm-hmm. You're going to hand stuff back, and that's it.
That's it.
Microsoft doesn't care what goes on in that other stuff.
Right. And remember when you asked earlier, what kind of control do I have over like that responsible AI stuff?
And now you've got control, you've got complete control.
You've got complete control. I know people that have built agents. I have a client that I've worked with that they were in the medical field around breast cancer research. And a lot of stuff, they were having trouble with some of the stuff that was set up on the responsible AI stuff already, naturally, just because of the terms that are used.
Right.
And so they were like, no, sorry, this isn't going to work. We need to have our own control. So that's nice, because you can go full board, just like going, nope, I still want Copilot for my end users, but I need to have more control over this. And it allows you, there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. But it is a much bigger lift and being more like full code.
Well, yeah, that's what it is that you are building your own agent at that point. I think the big advantage there is that Microsoft is coming to the table and saying, here's the consistent user experience.
Yep.
We're going to give you the authentication. We're going to give you the UI. We're going to give you the way that it gets launched. All of that is done. It's handled for you. You just need to figure out, how to handle the request and handle a response.
Yeah, pretty much.
Little details like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They hand off the prompt to us. We take it from there, and then we hand back the response, and they're like, cool, right. We got it. We're good.
So that's a pretty significant component, because really it does let you say you can do whatever you want, however you want to do it, and yet still have the advantage of this is the integration with Teams.
Yes, yeah, and
that's
this
powerful. Yeah,
and so this is the one. Just if everybody goes researching this later, the JSON and YAML one, that's called a declarative agent. And when you do it the way I just described it, with all like taking over the full experience, that's called a custom engine agent. Basically, I'm saying I'm going to build a custom AI engine, whatever that consists of, what resources I use, to implement my agent. So a CEA versus a DA.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interest on the CEA side. It's really powerful, but most companies don't even realize that. So many people I see just see like, oh, Copilot, that's called Copilot Studio. Oh, so that's how I build all my agents. Like, no, there's a developer story. So it's really hard to get people to realize that. But once they do, they're like, okay, now this is cool. Now I see what I can do. So
this has been fantastic. I feel like there are 100 more questions I could ask. I need to process some of this. I need to see where it all fits in. But I feel like you've done at least for me, you've helped me a lot in kind of understanding what the landscape looks like on that side of Microsoft.
Cool.
So that helps a great deal. For folks that want to reach out to you or want to connect with you, where's the best place to find you? And I understand you have a podcast of your own, correct?
I do. I just started podcasting again after did it for like 8 years, 450 episodes, retired it about 2 or 3 years ago. And just started up a new one with a good friend of mine. It's called Code Deploy Go Live. It's on YouTube and it's on all the podcatcher apps. We've done 10 episodes and it's like a bi-weekly episode where it's because of who I am and who she is. We're Julie and I are both we're Microsoft 365 developers. So it's got a very Microsoft 365 developer and Azure developer push to it. But the name is intentional not to have Microsoft or 365 or Azure in the name because we're trying to be bigger tent about more just dev topics. So and you can find that anywhere. It's on YouTube and our website for that is codedeploygo.live.
Okay.
For me, where you can find me on the socials, I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. Used to be on Twitter, but I was one of the people who left years ago, just got tired of it. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm easy to find with the different social media platforms. If you just do andrewconnell.social and then / and put the name of the platform on the end of it, that'll redirect to my handle. So it's / LinkedIn / Blue Sky, Instagram. But then where you can learn more is, so I'll write all my articles under my company brand. So the company is Voitanos.io. And from there, that's where I write all my technical stuff, do my webinars and everything. So that's where you can I have a bi-weekly newsletter that I put out as well.
Okay. So I hope folks reach out to you if they've got questions. I'd love to hear what folks are doing. How much are folks using Microsoft 365? How much are you using these various platforms? I'm sure we'll have you back after Ignite and hopefully again in the future to talk about all of this stuff more.
I'd love
Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.